2.7 for Africa, it's catastrophic. It's catastrophic, okay? So while we as a country are doing the best to reduce, in fact, I mentioned about 0 point something about our emission, but we're doing more than that, right? But we are calling upon the biggest emitters. As you know, 20 countries, they call G20. The G20 countries that contribute 80% plus of the combined of the global greenhouse emissions, 80%. And they control 80% of the global GDP. So it tells you these are the wealthy nations. They have the means. So what we are telling them is, we will continue to do our bit. We will continue to increase our ambition on mitigation, as we have been doing. But you bear the greatest responsibility. Okay? You bear the greatest responsibility. So you will be hearing here a lot about keeping the 1.5 degrees alive. All of us have a collective responsibility to contribute. We have been contributing within our means, okay? But we will be calling on our developed countries, friends, to do their bit, provide leadership, and recognize and accept their responsibility and support us to do what we must do. And finally, there is a lot of focus and interest in this COP, not so much, well, the fact that the US is back into the Paris Agreement is a good thing, but that is not the reason why there is lots of attention and focus on this COP. It is because of where we are. If this COP fails, we are talking about irreversible consequences. This COP is the last COP that, because we are just about the tipping point, right? The tipping point. And this is the COP that either will save humanity and the planet from irreversible consequences and tipping point. This is a COP. So that really is the appreciation, not just because the US is back in the fold. We are happy about that. I really appreciate the leadership of President Biden and, of course, the UK. But that's not really the reason why there is a lot of focused attention. You will be seeing a lot of youth and women, the most vulnerable, indigenous communities here. So that really is the reason why there is, understandably, a lot of interest and focus on this COP. Adaptation has to also be matched with adaptation finance. Right? Kenya has been struggling, like most other African countries, developing countries that are the least emitters, struggling to mobilize its own internal resources. And there has not been, and this I'm sure will be evident shortly as we begin tough negotiations. The developed countries who are actually the largest, the biggest emitters, and bear the greatest responsibility, are not doing their job. They're not doing their part. They are not supporting us in terms of finances, in terms of technology and capacity. And so priority for us is adaptation and adaptation finance. I'm sure you've been hearing about the 100 billion US dollars pledge or obligation or commitment. That's which was delivered, which that pledge was made in 10 years ago. And would have been delivered by, actually the developed countries were required to have delivered that 100 billion US dollars per year by 2020. You just do the calculations. But that never happened. By 2020 came and passed. And now what we have, and is going to be a key issue here for at the political level, I'm sure our president will be taking, has been speaking about it very strongly. What we are now being presented with here is another delivery plan that our friends and developing countries are presenting to us, telling us we will now be prepared to deliver the 100 billion US dollar per year by 2023. So goalposts have been shifted. And then by 2024-25, we will deliver 500 billion US dollars. For us, this is now shifting goalpost, right? In the meantime, the devastation that our people have to suffer. So yes, you will be hearing a lot about the undelivered pledge or commitment, which goes to trust. And there is trust that has been broken. The other point, of course, that will be important for Kenya is the issue of loss and damage. Loss and damage here becomes relevant because we are already suffering. Suffering the effects of the impacts of climate change. Whether you are talking about the rising lake levels, you are talking about the impacts of drought, and so on and so forth. Recognizing that Kenya is the environmental capital of the globe, and I hope that this good work that has been undertaken by our President Uhuru Kenyatta does not get derailed. I believe, and I pray and believe, that whoever becomes the president come August next year will be able to build on this great work and foundation that our president has already laid regarding our leadership, regionally and globally, on climate change. Kenya is one of the first countries to sign and ratify and domesticate the Paris Agreement. We have put in place, and our president, I'm sure, will be speaking to us, all the institutional policy frameworks. We have done a lot. We are a leader in the area of renewable energy. Actually, I think we're doing far better than most of these developed countries. So Kenya is a leader. Our president is a leader. And Kenya is using our position in the Security Council to showcase and demonstrate the correlation between climate change and security, global security. The reports, scientific reports that have been released, recognize the special circumstances for Africa. We have mentioned already, I've mentioned already, the fact that we contribute the least as a region. 2, we bear the brunt of the impacts of climate change. 3, because of our location within the equator, 1.5 degree to us is already beyond 2. So we are disproportionately affected by a single fraction. So that is one item that we will be hearing a lot in the course of this. There are other items, but for us here, as Kenya, as Africa, the developed countries that bear the greatest responsibility must do their bit, as we continue to do ours within our means. Yes. Global warming is caused by greenhouse emissions. Kenya emits less than 1% of the global total. Africa, less than 5%. And yet, Kenya and Africa suffer or bears the brunt of climate change. So for Kenya, a number of issues, and Africa and the developing countries. Firstly, for us, it is about adaptation. The COP26, which was supposed to happen last year, did not because of COVID. And we were prepared for this conference last year, but then it was not possible. We are prepared. Our technical teams have been participating in the informal negotiations, virtual negotiations, the entire of last year, the entire of this year, or at least the balance of this year, again virtually, because again of the COVID, and also at the technical level and policy level. All the key issues that are in contention, and those issues that we as a country, as Kenya, take very, very seriously, then we are more than prepared. And Cabinet has been fully briefed. Our leadership has been briefed. Our president is fully on top of it. The report that has just been produced recently shows that Mount Kenya will become the first mountain in Africa to completely deglaciate. We will lose, in very quick succession, Africa will have no snow and will have no ice on its mountains. Whether you're talking about Mount Kenya, you're talking about Mount Kilimanjaro, or the Rwenzori's mountain. So we have a serious problem here. So we're looking at sufficient finances for adaptation and also for loss and damage. Again, our friends, the developing countries, those who bear the responsibility, are not very keen on the issue of loss and damage. So that is going to be one issue for serious negotiation. The third issue, of course, is the question about keeping the 1.5 degrees centigrade alive. I'm sure you've been hearing it. The trajectory now, as we're moving right here, is if no drastic action is taken, we are looking at 2.7 degrees as opposed to 1.5 at the end of this century. That is grave. Adaptation is ensuring that our people, our communities, our economy has the necessary resilience, adaptive capacity to withstand or quickly recover from the impacts of climate change. When it rains and all our infrastructure is washed up, the lakes of a flood, the rivers of a flood, when drought, so firstly is adaptation, and adaptation is building the capacity of our infrastructure, of our people and communities to withstand, to absorb the shocks of the devastating impacts of climate change. Now, to do that, you require resources. So we are affected by climate change as a whole. And I mean, you don't need science to know climate change is real. You can see and witness the devastation of floods when it rains, or the devastation of drought when it doesn't rain. So Kenya is perpetually, like most part of Africa and developing countries, perpetually under emergency. We're under emergency all the time throughout the year. You know, of course, what is happening in the rising lakes and so on and so forth. Yes. So Kenya is affected like every other country, but more so Kenya being climate vulnerable, one of the most climate vulnerable countries.